Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Camper Report. Today, I've got one of the two of the 49ers cutback. Ant from 49ers Cutback is joining me today. How are you doing today? I'm excited to talk football. We have 49ers game in 2 days, Monday night. Should be very exciting. So how are you doing today? Thanks for joining me. I mean, I think it's been for you, I think it's been almost a year since we did this, or 10 months. So thank you
Yeah.
for joining me.
Oh yeah, I love coming on. It's been a long time for me. Alex did it, a couple times I think since,
Yeah.
but it's been difficult to find the schedule that works. But we worked it out today,
Yeah.
and now it's a good week to work it out because the 49ers have a big game against the Rams. If they get the win, they're first in the division. If they don't, we're talking 1-3, and we're talking, is this a similar situation to 3-5 last year? It's going to be a fun one. I hope the Niners win because it'll make conversations a little bit easier next week. But if not, we'll still be talking football, I'm sure.
Yeah, yeah. Well, let's get right into it because we do have 8 topics for today, or yeah, 7 or 8. So, first I wanted, before we get into big picture stuff, the Rams game, I did want to get your thoughts on the Jimmy Garoppolo interception at the end. I believe it was first down, and they were driving down the field. I believe it was 4 minutes left in the game, or 3 minutes left, and we were down by 1 point. So if we would have, all we needed is a field goal. So everyone knows it. The Jimmy Garoppolo interception. We can pull this up here. Let me just okay. So basically, what we can watch it, I guess, real quick here. What did you see on this play as you're watching it?
Yeah, so I mean, Debo's coming across the formation. What Jimmy doesn't see is K1 Williams is squatting on it right there at the 40-yard line, just past the
Right.
hash. And Jimmy doesn't locate him. So right now, when he's about to throw the football, he thinks Debo Samuel's going to clear that linebacker and be open. But of course, he's not. This is one of the problems with Jimmy in this game. Once he got past pre-snap reads, he wasn't able to read it in the middle of the game as the action was coming. And this is one of those situations where he forced the football he shouldn't have forced. He's got to locate that second safety, or in this case, K1 Williams, and he just makes a bad throw. Was there anyone open on the play? No. But
Yeah.
that doesn't mean you throw a errant football like this. What he should have done was throw it away, live to fight another day.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's tough because pressure was in his face all game, and I feel like he was making at the end there, especially, like, even though pressure wasn't really in his face that play, he was making rash decisions for those last few drives that Trent Williams wasn't there. And so again, a quarterback, when he's constantly having pressure in his face, is always going to be feared. Oh, is this guy on my blind side? Is he about to hit me? So he's making those decisions, but he's making them sped up. He's not thinking about it as long as he should, basically, is
Yeah, I
what
mean,
I think.
Josie Jewell was coming on the blitz. He was going to get home, but you can't turn over the ball. You eat it, you throw it away. You know what I mean? And this is one of those things where if he throws it into the ground in front of Debo Samuel, nothing happens. But I mean, he tries to force it in there. And really, what it comes, you look at his eyes, he's
Yeah,
locating linebacker, but not locating K1 Williams. And
right.
Williams makes a great play on it.
Yeah, and you see, like you said, Josie Jewell, the blitz there, he came in and it was basically one-on-one with him and the running back, which made things a little bit harder right there. And so I guess there was a little bit of pressure, and he was pressured to make that throw. So interesting play there. But let's get to the next topic. We're talking Kyle Shanahan. I guess, like, my question to you is, a lot of people, now I don't know if you've been hearing the same thing, but I think you have, a lot of people starting to get a little bit worried with Kyle Shanahan. They're starting to have question marks, and not exactly on the hot seat yet, but they are saying, like, they're starting to question, is this guy um is he like, for what he did with Trey Lance. A lot of people will blame him for that play call, and they're starting to question, is he the coach of the future? So should Kyle Shanahan be on the hot seat? And what point this season will at one point, where does it have to go for him to be on that hot seat this season?
Yeah, I've heard all the noise. Everyone blaming Kyle Shanahan for what happened to Trey Lance. I'm a little bit in a different category because I think one of Trey Lance's best characteristics was using his legs in the run game. That's what kept defenses playing 11 on 11
Yeah.
football and open up the run game. So I don't blame Kyle for that. I understand that running a quarterback too much can get him hurt. But I don't care where it's at. I don't care if it's in the middle, outside, whatever. It was his third carry of the game. If it would have been 13th carry of the game, we could have a conversation about it. But as far as Kyle Shanahan on the hot seat, I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon for a couple of reasons. Number one, you're just coming off an NFC Championship appearance.
Right.
A couple of years ago, you were in the Super Bowl. How many head coaches in this league have had those, things happen for their football team over the last few years? Not very many. So he's in rare category there. Is it a tough start to the season? Absolutely. Is it 2 straight tough starts to the season? Actually, 3 if you count 2020's disaster. Yes. But he just lost his big-time quarterback that they were looking to develop, and they're going back with Jimmy Garoppolo. I don't think that puts him on the hot seat. I think that actually gives him a little bit of grace. I thought if they went through the season with Trey Lance and did okay, he was going to be fine. If they did absolutely terrible this year, he could have started warming up, and next year would have been the year. So I still think we're a couple years from Kyle Shanahan actually being on a hot seat.
Yeah, I think he has a chance to get back on track with the stretch after this Rams game against the Panthers and the Falcons, two of the they're both bottom half teams. I think if there's going to be a time where he can get his offense back on track, it's against those two teams. That's an easy stretch, but I think more question marks will be raised if he loses to one of those teams, either the Falcons or the Panthers. Because then if you lose to the Rams here today, in 2 days, and then you lose to either one of those teams, now you're looking at a 2-4 start. And now it's going to be a lot harder to quiet those critics. So, but again, if you win this Rams game, then you're 2-2, you're leading the division, and everything seems to go away. And then you can maybe get on a hot streak when you play the Panthers and Falcons, and then you can go 4-2. So this game says a lot. I don't think if he loses it, he won't be on the hot seat again. Last year when that time when the owner went to Kyle Shanahan at practice is when we were 3-5. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
I'm not actually sure what that was about, but a lot of people said that was kind of a wake up call. He was telling Kyle Shanahan like you need to get your act together. I don't think that was. I think that could have been anything. So I don't think any time you don't put a coach on the hot seat during the season. But if he loses this game and then one of the next two, then yeah, it's going to be a lot more critics.
Yeah, I think Kyle's gotten a lot of leeway because last year he was 3-5 and then made it to the playoffs in the NFC Championship game. I think he should have some leeway with fans too as we wait and kind of be patient to see how this season ends up developing. We're 3 games into the season. There's 14 games left. That's a lot of opportunity for our team to turn it around. And I think we're just so used to 2019. That's kind of what we go back to when they won the first 8 games. And it's like, oh, that's what we're expecting from Kyle Shanahan. We're expecting an offense that puts up over 30 points a game. And unfortunately, he's never got the key tool at quarterback that he's looking for. That's what he's hoping Trey is going to be. And if he gets that, all those numbers and things eventually will be through the roof. But until then, he's got to figure out how to get it done with Jimmy Garoppolo, a middle-of-the-road quarterback in this league. The good news for him, he has one of the best defenses in the entire league.
Yeah. And my thing is, my worry is, since the schedule is so hard, and we just showed, hopefully he can make his offense less abysmal, because if it's as bad most of the season as it was against the Broncos, man, this is going to be a pretty long season, because how are you expected to score against good teams like the Chiefs? I don't see it and keep up with them. So I think another thing is you have to get George Kittle involved more, and that's going to be, I think, if he can get George Kittle involved more, I'll have less question marks, because I think you should be getting him involved. And I don't know, last game he was quiet, George Kittle, and maybe maybe that's not Kyle Shanahan's fault. Maybe Kyle Shanahan was calling plays up for him and George Kittle just wasn't getting open. But still, I want to see George Kittle get the ball more.
He definitely did call plays for him. I broke
Yeah.
down the old 22, and the problem is I don't think George Kittle is fully George Kittle yet. This was his first game back from injury. He didn't look 100% getting in and out of his breaks on routes. He'll get there eventually, but also with Jalen Moore coming in at left tackle for 7 plays, George Kittle for half of those was the extra blocker helping him out because Jalen Moore was getting absolutely schooled on the edge by Randy Gregory and Bradley Chubb.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Let's get into the comments, though, a little bit. We have Grandizer, my faithful. Every time I go live, he's here. So thank you so much. History. The two teams have met each other 146 times, including 2 postseason games, with the Rams winning 68 games and the 49ers winning 75 games. They have also tied 3 times. 49ers lead series 75-68, and then 3 ties. Thank you for that stat.
Pretty even.
Yeah. 49ers news. Joe Staley says Mike McDaniel was the Wizard of Oz of the 49ers offense. The Camper Report, Sports Illustrated, the Camper Report was there. I'm not sure what he means at the end of at the end of that comment, but yeah, what do you think about this? Because we kind of had a similar thing, and I'm going to talk about it later on my show tonight, but with the Tua thing, we kind of had a similar thing with Mike McDaniel, with Tua getting injured. What do you think about that situation? I just want to get your quick thoughts on that, because he definitely, it's obviously not the coach's decision to put a player back in. It's the people who clear them. But what do you think of that situation over there? I think similar to what happened to Trey Lance.
I think it's interesting because he was cleared by an independent doctor. You know what I mean? And so I think when that happens as a coach, a lot of times you're not involved in the overall injury decisions. You're just sitting back, you wait for the report, and then you move on from there. You kind of have to just listen to your training staff, because what you're interested in doing is about on the field. Who's available on the field is important to you. So if they would have told him Tua wasn't available, he would have moved on. But the fact that they said Tua was ready to go, he figured he was. And of course, it was a scary scene seeing Tua the first time looking, punch drunk. He's barely walking around on the field. And then they say it's a back. And then the second time, that was just freaky, seeing him on the ground, holding his hands up to his face. Not a good situation. I don't put it on McDaniel, though. I do put it on the training staff. I put it on the independent doctors. They've got to make sure they protect these players. And now the NFLPA is going to come at them. So it's unfortunate, because I think Tua is a really good guy. It's unfortunate for the Miami Dolphins as well, because now every single injury decision here moving forward will be scrutinized.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But let's move on to the next topic. Where would you rank, because this 49ers defense you mentioned earlier has been absolutely incredible, and it's been giving Kyle Shanahan a lot of room to work, and it's been giving them a lot of chances. Where would you rank? Because again, this defense so far has given up 11 points last game, 0 points 0 points the game before against the Seahawks, and then 19 points against the Bears. So very good. Averaging 10 points a game given up. Where would you rank this defense in the Shanahan era? And then also, is it the best? Is it better than what Harbaugh ever had?
It's tough to say it's better than what Harbaugh ever had. Harbaugh had some really good teams with some definite players. That 2011 San Francisco 49ers defense was absolutely fantastic. Aldon Smith, Justin Smith bringing the pass rush, and then you had Patrick Wilson, Navarro Bowman. I don't know if they've reached that level yet. I want to see a larger sample size. But as far as in the Kyle Shanahan era, yes, this is the best defense that they've ever had, because they're stronger against the run. In 2019, the 49ers defense wasn't as good against the run, which made it difficult at the end of games because they were on the field a little bit longer. This one is so stout in the middle, especially, you just played a game without Eric Armstead on the interior, and you were still able to hold the Denver Broncos' really good rushing attack to 101 yards. That's a really good day. So I think this defense overall is better than 2019. I think there are areas that 2019 you could say are probably better, as far as having Buckner over Kinlaw in the pass rush area. But in the run, Kinlaw's better than Buckner. So I think it's kind of a give and take, but I do think it's a little bit better than 2019.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, 2019, what they were giving up like 4.4 yards per carry. This
Yeah.
year they're giving up very little. So I mean, I tend to agree with you there. I think the linebacker group for Harbaugh with Willis and Bowman was a lot. I think it was better. And then you also had Ahmed Brooks, who had a very good year in 2012, so he was good as well. A defensive line wise, I think Nick Bosa, as far if you're comparing him and Alden Smith, he did have that one good year, 19.5 sacks for Alden Smith, but Nick Bosa, I think, obviously has better longevity and is going to be doing it for longer than Alden Smith. So I'd put Nick Bosa any day over Alden Smith. And then Justin Smith, also really good defensive end, but I think the depth for us is there. And then if you look at safeties, Goldson, yeah, was really good as well. And I think that's a guy that probably is better than any safety we have, but Jimmy Ward's probably close to that point. And then cornerbacks, you have like Parrish Cox and Brandon Culliver. Was that our corners?
It was Chris Culliver and
No,
I'm trying to
yeah,
remember.
sorry, my bad.
Yeah, Culliver was pretty good. They had a couple of guys. They brought in Carlos Rogers as well. He was one of the corners. Rogers was a top 10 pick. Then we had Dante Whitner. He was a top 10 pick. Neither one of them worked out in their first with their first teams,
Yeah.
the Bills and the Washington team. And then they ended up here in San Francisco, and then they finally played like those top 10 picks.
Right.
Yeah, they were really good. That first year, 2011, with Harbaugh, was pretty much Pro Bowlers all over the place. The Vic Fangio-led defense was fantastic. I don't know if we're at that level, but we'll see, because Tarvarius Ward and Emmanuel Mosley are absolutely fantastic right now. They're not giving up anything, and we don't even have Jimmy Ward back. When Jimmy Ward comes back, this defense should take another step forward.
That's true. And another thing that I think separates it a little bit is Vic Fangio was a great defensive coordinator, but he wasn't a very good head coach. And so history is still a little bit unwritten with D'Amico Ryans. Like, if this guy can go on most likely next year and be a very good head coach, then I would consider him better than what Vic Fangio was, because when Vic Fangio was a head coach, he kind of wasn't that good in Denver, or was terrible in Denver. So I think if D'Amico Ryans goes on to be a good head coach, then yeah, then you'll start saying, okay, the 49ers had a better defensive coach right now than what Harbaugh did, because D'Amico Ryans is a better head coach, and he was like, if you're able to be a better head coach, then you're most likely a better defensive coach, in my opinion. So yeah, that could be another thing, but history's still unwritten there for sure.
What's interesting is Vic Fangio might end up being the defensive coordinator for the 49ers if D'Amico Ryans becomes a head coach.
Yeah,
so that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, comes back full circle for sure. San Francisco 49ers news. I heard about this, actually. The 49ers have the easiest remaining schedule in the league with a 49% chance to make the playoffs. That's interesting, because you look at their schedule and it's like pretty hard, I would think. But yeah, that's interesting.
I think it's because the NFC West is struggling right now. I mean,
True.
Seattle's not exactly great. Arizona hasn't looked good. And the Rams are beatable. They're still a formidable team, but they're beatable. But if you look along the entire NFC, it's not that good. Then you throw in the fact that it was supposed to be the tough AFC West that you're playing, and the Raiders are 0-3. That kind of brings things down as well. So I think it makes their schedule look a little bit easier than it did at the beginning. And that's why when you go through the schedule, you have to wait, because you just never know how these teams are going to play, from the beginning. I think a lot of teams expect the Niners to be 3-0. Here they are 1-2, and everyone now looks at the remaining schedule and it's like, oh, it's easier playing the 49ers.
Yeah, that's true. San Francisco 49ers news. 49ers running backs coach Bobby Turner returns to the team. Yeah, I saw that. That's good. So Trent Williams, let's get to some injury news, though. And this was the big news of the, yeah, this is not good. And this is something I posted some all 22 film on my channel, basically showing when Trent Williams went out, the amount of pressure that was coming from that left side. And it's really incredible. So Trent Williams, how big of a loss is this going to be? How are the 49ers going to deal with this injury? And then Al-Shaair Trent Williams, high ankle sprain, out 6 to 8 weeks. That's big. And then as well, Al-Shaair also out for quite a while. How long is he out for again, Al-Shaair?
Yeah, they said it was really close to Elijah Mitchell's injury. Mitchell's out 8 weeks, so I would expect it to be the same. So he's going to be out for a couple months. We're not going to see Al-Shaair. That means Flanagan Fowles is going to be the guy tasked with playing that role.
Yeah. So, I mean, how do we replace these guys? Considering that, you look at that pressure that that Jimmy Garoppolo was dealing with. How do we deal with this?
First off, it's going to be Colton McKivitz. Kyle Shanahan already came out and said, and if you watch the All-22, so you know, Colton McKivitz played vastly better than Jalen Moore. Jalen Moore, he looked lost. He didn't look good. His technique was off. He was getting beat. So it's going to be Colton McKivitz. The good news is I was out at training camp every single day, and Colton McKivitz played really well in training camp. He had a really good preseason. This is the best version of Colton McKivitz we've saw. I also went back and watched Week 10, Week 18, the NFC Championship game last year. And I did not realize this, but in Week 10, Jalen Moore started at right tackle. In Week 18, Colton McKivitz and Tom Compton started at the tackle spots. And in the NFC Championship game, Compton started. So the Niners never had all their starting tackles against the Rams last year. Yeah. And that was going against Von Miller, and Leonard Floyd. This year, it's going to be not Von Miller. So it should be an easier task for the 49ers. Of course, you always have to worry about Aaron Donald. But I think one of the easiest ways to do it is get the run game established. If you establish the run game, it'll take pressure off Colton McKivitz. He's better in slide protection type systems. He's better in play action than he is in a traditional pass set. I think that's the way to go. That will also help Mike McGlinchey, who struggles in traditional pass sets too. So that's the way to do it. Just can you execute a run game against 6 defensive linemen? Because that's what the Rams are about to put out there like they did in the NFC Championship game.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Kyle Shanahan has a whole week. Like last week when we lost Trent Williams, that's a huge blow because you haven't game planned for that. So you have to on the fly make plays or whatever. And you probably don't have many plays without Trent Williams because he's a main cornerstone of your team. So he does have a whole week to game plan for this. I do assume that as the season goes,
Hey, Ben, we lost your mic. Yeah, I'm not hearing anything.
Am I back?
You're back now.
Okay, that's my bad. I think my mic cord is a little messed up. But so anyways, so he's going to have a whole week. Trent Williams is a whole week to prepare without Trent Williams, and I think that's going to help. But as long as you can stick to that run game, and that's the one thing that I saw is we went away from it early in that game, and I really don't think we should have. The way our defense was playing, you have to establish some type of run game, and you have to stick to it the whole game. And that's like early in the Broncos game, we were running the ball and we were having success, and then we went away from it, which I have no idea why. So
yeah, you've got to establish a run game, and it's going to be difficult. I mean, the Rams, that's what they're going to try to take away. Kyle Shanahan's, what he's done in Week 18, the NFC Championship game, he just tried to spread them out, throw the football, and that's what Jimmy's probably going to have to do. He's going to have to prove that he can win outside the numbers a little bit. If he does that, it'll spread this defense horizontally and create run lanes and pass lanes for Jimmy over the middle. But if Jimmy's not able to execute those, it's going to make it difficult. They're going to muddy up the middle of this field, stop the run. I mean, the game plan is real simple for the Rams. They know exactly how to attack a Jimmy Garoppolo-led offense. Kyle and Jimmy have to come up with a way to attack that makes people change their game plan.
Yeah. Well, and now we're on it, let's just get to keys to this. Can the 49ers, what are some keys that they didn't do last week on offensively that they have to improve to win this Rams game? What are some keys for this game? That was our topic later on in the show, but let's just segue into that.
Yeah, I think it comes down to making sure you execute. There were so many times there was lack of execution for this offense. Right. Missed block here, bad snap here. Jimmy not reading something, as far as coverage and getting it there. A bobbled ball like we got down the field from Jawan Jennings, it would have put the 49ers near field goal range. All these little mistakes add up to a loss. And so you got to clean up those. What you want to have is less mistakes than you had against the Broncos. And unfortunately, it wasn't that there was a ton of mistakes. It was just that mistakes happened at key times, and it was different people having those mistakes. So they got to get the team together and get in chemistry. And both Kyle Shanahan and Jimmy Garoppolo have talked about the fact Jimmy's trying to get chemistry with this offensive unit. It's not the same exact unit it was before. The plays aren't exactly the same, so the timing's different. If they can do that and they're able to execute, that will help them against the Rams because they have moved the football against the Rams. All 3 meetings last year, Jimmy Garoppolo had pretty good success. So I think there is optimism that can happen, but you've got to go out there and prove it on the field, and the way you do it is executing the plays Kyle calls.
Yeah. I mean, the Rams' pass defense, and this is why, again, like I said, you have to stick to that run game because when they were running the ball, the 49ers only really ran the ball like with Jeff Wilson 12 times. And I mean, I know you're a little afraid to get like your running backs injured, your number one running back injured, but then use somebody else that you have. I guess he doesn't trust Mason enough. But you have to stick to that run game. And I think 12 carries wasn't enough for Jeff Wilson. And I believe Debo had like 4 or 5 carries. But the Rams are really good against the pass. I mean, they allowed 5.4 yards per on average yards per attempt, and then they also allowed a 77.8 rating to Kyler Murray, which is really good. Another guy though that he's a rookie, Darian Kendrick, who I think he's been overlooked. He kind of entered the scene last week against the Cardinals, but he's a very good cornerback who was making plays. I think he had 9 tackles. And so opposite to Jalen Ramsey, that's a really good cornerback that is emerging for them. And that's a player to look out for. So you have to find some ways to get it out to Debo in the flat. And Debo Samuel's, they're good at doing that. Like, I believe out of the backfield, Debo Samuel's like 5th in the league. No, 1st in the league for average yards, which is like 21 something per game. I can look it up right here. Let's see. Yeah, so Debo Samuel is 1st in averaging out of the backfield, averaging 17.3 yards per game out of the backfield. So you have to give it to him in the flat, and you have to. That's I think how you're going to give it to your playmaker the most, which is Debo Samuel, because they have good corners, and one that is emerging this year. So.
Yeah, it's about finding matchups that you like, and getting Debo Samuel out of the backfield means you normally have him going against a linebacker, and he got deep down down the field on a wheel route against Denver, and that was a big time play. Of course, Jimmy probably could have thrown it out there a little bit farther and it would have been a touchdown, but those are the kind of plays that are going to be there for Debo. Last year, Jermichael Hasty and Elijah Mitchell had catches, a lot of catches, in fact, against the Rams over the last 2 games that they met. That means good news for Debo Samuel coming out of the backfield. That's a matchup you want. Also, they would try to cover George Kittle sometimes with their outside linebackers and bring blitzes from the other side. If you can find those matchups, of course, you have to locate them pre-snap, get the ball to George Kittle then. Those are opportunities you can take advantage of because they do want to put pressure on Jimmy. But if Jimmy can throw into the pressure, he's going to be able to find open receivers. So it's all about personnel and matchups. And as long as Kyle can scheme it up to get the matchups he wants, including – I know Bobby Wagner's good, but if you can get Bobby Wagner on Debo Samuel or George Kittle, those are wins for the 49ers.
And that's what's so tough about like the Rams defense is they have a good run game as well. Like they've done pretty good at stopping the run. They did a really good job against the Cardinals last week. And then Jalen Ramsey, who had a rough week 1, had a real like the last 2 weeks has been doing really good. So there's going to be little room for error against this Rams defense. And yeah, that's going to be tough for sure. But let's get to the next one, the next topic, which is, let's see here. I'm finding it. Hold on. I need to get these banners up before the stream actually starts. What are the playoff chances looking like if the 49ers lose this game? Again, we were talking about it earlier. They're 1-3. If they win this game, they're leading the division. If they lose this game, they're 1-3. And just to bring up a quick thing, if the Lions beat the Seahawks, which there's a good chance they do, then if the 49ers lose to the Rams, they're behind the Lions, Vikings, Packers. I believe if the Saints win, they're also behind the Saints. So if they lose this game, they're behind a ton of players that we would originally be competing with for that wild card spot. So what are their chances looking like? if they lose this game?
I think it's pretty close to the same as last year because they were 3-5, and that's farther along in the season. That means you have 9 games left last year. This year, you would have a lot more. You'd have 13 games left to turn things around. You just never know, especially with Carolina and Atlanta as the next 2 teams. The 49ers could start 1-3 and then easily end up 3-3 coming out of those 2 games. So I don't get too concerned about playoffs this early in the season. Of course, it's always something you have to look at because you don't want to fall that far behind. But 2 games under 500 is not the worst thing in a 17-game season with as many teams that make the wild card as do right now. I think in years past, it would have been even tougher. But I know your percentage and chances of making the playoffs go down with a 1-3 start. But I think the 49ers have the defense overall and the talent on offense to be able to turn this thing around. And I think Carolina and Atlanta kind of give them that opportunity that, hey, even if you lose this, you can still come back. So I think it's pretty close to last year when the 49ers were 3-5.
Yeah, that's true. And they do have the first, like, if you look at the first, let's see, after this game, it would be 4. So 6 games, they would have the Bears, Seahawks, Panthers, Falcons. Those are 4 really. And that's why, like, you would have wanted the 49ers to start off like 5-1 in those first 6 games because really that's easy. And again, if you look throughout the schedule, even though Grandizer did bring up a good point, like they do have the easiest schedule but I still look at all of those teams. I mean, I still look at the Chargers, Chiefs, Buccaneers as all really hard matchups, especially like you look at the Chiefs, they have a mobile quarterback. They have quarterbacks who make plays. I mean, even though the Chargers haven't started off too hot, they are a little bit of a disappointment. They do have a quarterback who can make plays, and they have high-powered offenses on most days. Like both of those teams have very high-powered offense. So even though the Chargers especially haven't started off too hot, I think they should get their legs under them as the season goes on. And so I think the schedule is still really hard, and there's not really a stretch that I look at and say, oh, this is easy. So their chances, I think, will be severely impacted if they lose this game. And again, last year, yes, we were 3-5, but to push back on a little of what you were saying, our schedule, I think, is a little bit harder than what it was last year. Because last year we had a lot of matchups to get back on track, but yeah, I don't know. I think it's a little bit harder this year.
I think the NFC West was harder last year than it is this year.
That's
Arizona's
true.
not
That's
as
true.
good. The Rams aren't as good.
That's true.
Seattle's definitely not as good. There's no Russ. So it's a winnable division. As long as you can win your division, you could probably make the playoffs.
That's a good point that you make. And if we win this game, we're 2-0 in the division.
Yeah.
So I guess the schedule has gotten harder, but like you said, that's a good point that you make is the division has gotten worse. So yeah, that's a good point. But let's get to the next topic. I believe we have who has a better day, Deebo Samuel or Cooper Kupp?
It's so tough to stop Cooper Kupp. I mean, Cooper Kupp just always seems to get his. I think the goal for the 49ers is to limit Kupp. I don't think you stop him. You're just trying to limit him from making the big plays like he made in the NFC Championship game. So I think they're both going to have really good days. But I think Kupp might have just a slightly better day than Deebo Samuel. All the while, I think the 49ers limit him to 75 yards, and it ends up being a good day. That's receiving. I think Deebo's going to make an impact in a couple of different ways. I wouldn't be shocked if both of them walk away with a touchdown, but I think that's going to be a goal of the 49ers to help limit Cooper Kupp. But I think Deebo Samuel is going to also be a focal point of the Rams defense, which means they could end up with Jalen Ramsey on him the entire time he's lined up outside. And when he's in the backfield, they're all going to be focused on him. So Deebo could be a decoy, which means he doesn't have as much production. Cooper Kupp will probably have some production. I think it's going to be pretty close, but I would give the little bit of a leaning towards Cooper Kupp. 75 yards and a touchdown, I think the Niners could live with.
Yeah, and I also think Cooper Kupp's going to get more targets. Now, Cooper Kupp is at his best when he's in the slot, and the 49ers are third best at defending the slot, which is great. They've gotten, I think, better. Like last year, a lot of the year, they were playing with Johnson in the slot, which is a scary thought to think about. Now they're playing with Lenore, who has gotten a lot better and has been playing really solid. The one thing is, like, what happened to Samuel Womack? Like, what happened? Because he's not even starting, and he had a great camp, great preseason.
Kyle Shanahan basically just said Deommodore Lenoir was looking better in practice, so he just got beat out, and that's crazy. I did see a couple plays in weeks 1 and 2 where Womack struggled a bit. I
Yeah.
didn't think it was enough for Deommodore Lenoir to take over, but the 49ers definitely felt that. The one area that Lenoir is really better than Womack is tackling. He's a fantastic tackler, and it's not like Womack
Yeah.
won't get better because I think he's going to be fantastic too. But Lenoir right now is solid. He doesn't miss tackles, that gives you a lot of ability with these teams wanting to put you in these nickel situations. You need that guy to be like a linebacker. D'Amico Ryans did a really good job describing these nickel corners. They got to be able to cover like a corner and tackle like a linebacker. That could be Deommodore Lenoir, who has safety qualities. So that's probably why they went there. But it's just crazy because Womack was on the field for 2 plays against the Denver Broncos, and one of those he punched out a fumble. He just makes plays. So I think it's going to be Lenoir, but they got 2 good ones, I think, right now.
Yeah, that's a good point. I do expect when he does line up outside Cooper Kupp for them to target Emmanuel Moseley, because even though he is good, but I guess he has given up, I think, 9 catches the last 3 weeks for like 130 passer rating or something. So like, even though he's looked good, I guess the stats and the PFF doesn't think so. I think PFF rates him a little bit lower than what you were saying, which when I saw that stat, when I saw how much he's giving up, like the passer rating when he's targeted, when quarterbacks are targeting him, I was like, what? Like, he's looked good. So I guess if there is a little bit of leeway for the Rams, I guess they're obviously going to go after Moseley. So they're going to find as many matchups. If Cooper Kupp is outside, they're going to find as many matchups as they can. Cooper Kupp versus Moseley, which, even though Moseley has looked, we've seen he's looked good, but I guess PFF doesn't think so. So if there is one leeway, I guess the Rams will try to target him.
I hope they do. I hope that's their game plan. Go after Emmanuel Moseley. That's better for us. You want to put Cooper Kupp on the outside. There's less opportunities for him to make plays out there. He's better in the slot. I think you're going to get safety help wherever Cooper Kupp is. If he's in the nickel, look for Hufanga and Gibson to be close by. And if he's outside, look for them to be over the top. I think they're going to make sure that Cooper Kupp's taken care of. Make Allen Robinson and Ben Skoranek beat you. I don't think they can consistently win, not against Tarvarius Ward and not in the nickel. So that's what I would do, and I think that's what D'Amico Ryans will do. It'll be a lot like Green Bay taking away Devontae Adams.
And where does that stat, because they, like, I was watching the preview and whatever, and they did say that, like, Emmanuel Moseley was giving up a lot when targeted. Where did that stat come up from? Because I thought he was doing really good.
Yeah, I don't know exactly where that stat came from. I've watched every single play the 49ers have ran multiple times. I thought Moseley's looked fantastic, besides one play last week where a receiver got across the middle on Emmanuel Moseley. It was an extended play, and the ball was caught. He made the tackle, but I mean, besides that, I mean, he's pretty much been all over it. It could be yards when targeted, but remember, the times they don't target him is because he has absolutely great coverage, and that's most of the game. I don't even remember the Bears even trying to throw on him.
Yeah.
And Seattle barely did as well. There's just not very many opportunities to go after Moseley because he's been pretty sticky in coverage.
Yeah, and I'm looking up that stat right now, if I can find it. Yeah, 13 targets, 9 receptions allowed, 131.9 rate, which is weird because I didn't think he's given up that much through 3 games, but I guess so. But yeah, David McNew says we can't let Kupp hit us in the face. Yeah, I think last NFC Championship, he had a really good day, right?
Yeah, I mean, Cooper Kupp was problems for K1 Williams. He really was. K1 Williams struggled with him, especially on the deep corner routes. And then an NFC Championship game, you have the one where he runs a corner for a touchdown. It just gets past Tart, and then Ambry Thomas doesn't sag far enough in his coverage, and it ends up being a big play. Cooper Kupp is dangerous. They're going to move him all over the field. Locating him and bracket coveraging him, double teaming him at times is going to be important. Make sure Kupp is not the one that beats you. With them not having OBJ and Robert Woods, I think it is a little bit easier to locate him and try to take him away, but he's still going to get his. You just have to make sure it doesn't get crazy, like 130 and 2 touchdown kind of performance.
Yeah, I completely agree there. He's going to get his targets. He's going to get 7 or 8, 9. Like, I believe week 2 he got 11 targets. So they're going to try to target him. The one thing though is that Hufanga, they're going to try to blitz Matthew Stafford or try to get home a lot. And if you can get Matthew Stafford under pressure, we've seen what he's done under pressure. I think that won't look good. Again, the offensive line for the Rams actually hasn't looked bad because they did lose their center, and he's not going to play this week. But it hasn't looked bad because I think Matthew Stafford only got sacked once last week. So, I mean, their offensive line has looked pretty good, but when under pressure, we've seen that we can pressure Matthew Stafford and we can make him make rash decisions. So I think Hufanga, you better watch out for him because if they're blitzing with him, the speed of Hufanga is going to get to Matthew Stafford quickly, and that's going to be key. I mean, that's one key for that game, and that's one guy that I'm looking forward to seeing.
Yeah, Hufanga is great, and I think they're going to have to use Hufanga around the box to help stop the run, but also he's going to have to fall off underneath under Cooper Kupp.
True.
But disguising whether it's a blitz or not is going to be important because Matthew Stafford's one of the best when a blitz was coming after him. He gets the ball out and he executes at a high level. So you have to pick your spots with a blitz. And I do think this offensive line is really bad. Boom was getting drove back by J.J. Watt, and Watt is good, but not the caliber Watt used to be. I think this 49ers defensive line can rush for and put major pressure on Stafford.
Yeah.
I think this is you're going to see major chinks in the armor of the LA Rams offensive line this week. 49ers got 4 sacks against Russell Wilson. They could have a similar performance against Matthew Stafford.
Well, and also you look at the two teams that they've played, there was Matthew Stafford's only taken 1 sack in each of the last 2 sacks in 2 games. But the thing is, if you look at the teams they played, Falcons and Cardinals, both teams with not very good defensive lines. And if you look at what they did do against the Bills as far as pressure-wise, that offensive line looked terrible against the Bills. It was the worst. So, yeah, I think the numbers do lie a little bit with that stat of he's barely taken any sacks because they haven't played very hard teams the last 2 games. So I completely agree with you there. When does Jimmy Ward come back? Because wasn't he supposed to come back this game?
No. So what it is, he had to miss the first 4 games by being put on IR. So Kyle Shanahan said next week they could open a practice window for him and Jason Verrett, which means both players could start practicing. I believe Curtis Robinson can as well. And then they have 3 weeks to declare whether they make them active onto the roster or they put them on IR for the rest of the season. I fully expect the practice window to open for both of them in the next week or so. And then we'll see where they're at. They'll probably come back against Atlanta or Kansas City. Those seem to be the most likely because I don't know if you want to put them out there against Carolina. Let them get their feet underneath them, especially the injuries that they've had. But it appears Jason Verrett is ready. He's not a guy that's still working to get better, but he's ready to go. So we could see Verrett, but then you have decisions. Where's he going to play? He's an outside corner. Does he play nickel? You have Lenore, you have Womack. It's going to make for some fun conversation over the next few weeks.
Yeah, and I think Verrett, maybe you put him in the slot. That could be interesting. He has played a little bit there, so that would be interesting to do that as well. Niner Sickness Podcast coming in. What's up, peeps? I need to get a show with you. We just never have been able to work it out. But definitely we'll do that again sometime. I just realized that your hat is the same as mine right here. I sometimes wear that on stream as well, so that's funny.
Very nice.
Watch out for Tutu to get a deep ball or 2 to stretch the field. That's that's a key for this game. I forgot about Tutu Atwell for sure. He's a guy that they could use as a dark horse.
Yeah, and they got Powell as well, and Powell is super fast. You see number 19 running around. He's going to get fly sweeps, catching screen passes. They've got talented players out there, so I think they do have talented receivers. The other thing to watch that I don't know how many people are paying attention to is when Ben Skoranek, the wide receiver, plays fullback. Him coming out of the backfield from fullback, he has some big plays against the Cardinals, and that's a matchup you have to locate him and make sure he doesn't get deep down the field because they're willing to do that, and he gets out there faster than anyone else. So it's a similar way they use Juszczyk, just with a faster, better athlete with Skoranek.
Yeah, true. Definitely. Big key there. Niner Sickness Podcast. Oh, sorry. Okay. Happy College Football Saturday, Mr. McNew. This is a Saturday. I think my Michigan team is playing right now. So definitely after this is over, I'm going to go watch a little bit of that. This Rams team will be a lot different than the championship game. They will probably use I formation more and spread the ball around more on offense. I would think so. How much do you think this run game is going to be active for that Rams team? this Rams
I think
team.
they're going to try. They want it to be like the NFC Championship game to run the football. The difference is Cam Akers hasn't been running at a high level.
No.
The 49ers interior defensive line is better because even if you don't have Armstead, they have brought in Hassan Ridgeway. And he's a huge run stopper. That's different from what we had last year. We just couldn't get it done with the guys we had last year. Street wasn't able to, anchor down and make plays. He was getting pushed off his spot in double teams last year. So it's a different defense. I think overall Greenlaw's healthier than he was last year. He got hurt in the NFC Championship game. I think they can stop the run. I think the Rams are getting 72 yards a game right now running the football. The run game is not there, but their pass game is pretty efficient. So I think the 49ers can stop the run early, make them one-dimensional, and then take away Kupp. I think that's kind of the game plan.
Yeah, true. And then you have to lean on Matthew Stafford's arm. And when they tried to do that against the Bills, they got absolutely destroyed. And I hope it's that kind of outcome. I don't think we're as good as the Bills. And that's why I'm a little afraid, because it's like I could see this being very similar to last week. It's just our offense has to be more explosive. It really does. Otherwise, we're kind of done. The Rams didn't use I formation versus the Bills. It will be interesting to see it used on a real D Monday. Yeah, I think the 49ers do have, I think, in my opinion, a better defense than the Bills. But that's
and if they run I formation, who's playing fullback? Is it Ben Skoranek? Because Ben Skoranek is not a good blocker. So the 49ers don't have to really account for him in the run game because they're going to be able to shed his block. So if they're running I-backs with Skoranek at fullback, I'm less worried about him in the run game. If he's playing it it's a pass situation, then I'm concerned about him.
Yeah, true. They brought back Malcolm Brown as a running back, so the run game should be a bit different too. I'll look him up. I actually never have heard of Malcolm Brown. That's an interesting name. I'm watching Wolverines versus Iowa right now. Yep, for sure. That should be interesting. So, yeah. So I guess, did we have one more to talk about? I think we did cover it because, let's see here. Number 8 was, is there any way the 49ers, real quick, let's touch on this. Is there any way the 49ers can improve on the defensive end for getting takeaways? Because that's the one thing, like, they got one. No, they didn't even. Did they get a takeaway on defense last week? And then the week before they got 2, I believe. So is there any way the 49ers can get more takeaways to make this offense's job a little bit easier? Because again, we've seen they've been a little bit haven't been too good, especially last week. So can they make this offense's job a little bit easier by getting a little more takeaways?
Yeah, I think, when it comes down to it, they had opportunities for takeaways. They had 3 balls, that either could have been intercepted or that were on the ground that they could have gotten. Russell Wilson got back on top of one, and you just had situations that didn't bounce your way. There's going to be games you're going to get turnovers and not, but what you want is opportunities. Consistently, the 49ers defense has created opportunities for turnovers. Now they just have to make sure they execute every single time. Some of that will come into anticipation, understanding what you're seeing, and then just being in the right spot. So it's going to happen more times than it doesn't. You're always going to have games where it doesn't work out turnover-wise. That's why your offense has to make sure they don't turn over the ball, because if they don't, you're going to have the defense is good enough to help you win a football game without turnover. So I think they can, but it's going to all come down to just capitalizing on the opportunities that are provided. And we know Matthew Stafford, historically against the 49ers over the last year, has provided the 49ers a lot of opportunities to make interceptions and to get the ball. It worked out a lot. I mean, the Monday Night Football game last year, Jimmy Ward pick 6. The NFC Championship game, Jimmy Ward pick at the goal line. But we also had a drop by Jaquiski Tartt in the NFC Championship game. So capitalizing on those is important. They're going to be there. Just can they get it done?
Yeah, and hopefully this is the get back on track week for the 49ers like it was last year. I'm hoping it is, because if it's not, it's going to be a big disappointment for everyone. I do think that the Niners defense, though, the last 3 games has held quarterbacks to under 200 yards every single game. Justin Fields got close. No, actually, Justin Fields didn't get close. He was the lowest passer. But I believe last week Russell Wilson got close to 200. But they're doing really good against quarterbacks. I think Matthew Stafford, even though he's struggled this year, and he always struggles against the 49ers. And that's what Niner Sickness podcast brings up here. Who throws the first interception, Jimmy Garoppolo or Matthew Stafford? I'm going to answer this. I think it's going to be Jimmy Garoppolo. That's just my opinion, but maybe it's Matthew Stafford. I don't know.
It's usually Matthew Stafford.
That's true.
Through the first games that they've played against each other, Stafford has thrown the first interception. So I'll just stay on history side and say Stafford, but I wouldn't be surprised to see both throw interception in this game.
Yeah.
Just hopefully it's only one from each of them, or one from Jimmy and multiple from Matthew Stafford.
Yeah. You were about to say one from each of them. No, I want like 5 from Matthew Stafford every drive. There you go. But anyways, this has been a lot of fun. Thank you for joining me once again. I apologize, everyone. Midway through the stream, I had some audio issues. Apologize for that. I'll be back later on tonight to talk a little bit more NFL with a guy from actually my hometown of Wilkes County, North Carolina, and he has his own radio show. So that should be a lot of fun talking NFL with him. Thank you for joining me once again, Ant.
Of course. Thanks for having me on. Always enjoy coming on and talking football with you. Great minds. I mean, you just have a really intelligent mind. You know football. So always fun to have a conversation about 49ers. So thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. So everyone, this has been a lot of fun. Have a good rest of your day. Real quick, David McNew. Welcome, David. He's another regular. Jimmy G has one job. Don't screw up. Yes. That's basically. And also, I mean, honestly, I would say Kyle Shanahan's one job is don't screw and maybe be a little bit more creative. Get Deebo Samuel the ball, get George Kittle the ball more. Is Kyle Shanahan wasting a Super Bowl ready defense? Too early to tell, I think.
Yeah, I'm with you. Too early.
Because I think he could get back on track. He really could. And it's interesting because he has done this the last 2 years where he starts off really slow, which is interesting. I don't understand it. Good stream, you guys. Go Rams. Yeah. Boo. Anyways, we'll see you guys again. Have a good rest of your day. This was a lot of fun, and I'll see you again tonight.